I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. I've got to plug my microphones in so that I can hear myself. Are you hearing me, Michael? How are you?
Yes, I'm great, Al. What a beautiful day in October here with the sun shining.
Well, great, great. Well, I am enjoying this day and excited about the days ahead. You know, this is an exciting time for our city, for our community, our country, actually. We're dealing with what we call the reckoning, coming to terms with challenges, failures, but also great promises made and promises that can be kept, dreams that can come true, dreams that have come true. We've got a great country, a great community, but again, there have been a series of disconnects, a system of disparities, and my intent as a communicator, as an African American, is to continue to move us towards the reconciliation. How do we make the promise of America the promise for every American, for every human being? So, right now, that means we pay attention to the city council elections coming up in a couple of days, next Tuesday. You're a candidate for Third Ward. Let's talk about your candidacy. I've invited you here before. I thank you for being here. Thank you for your candidacy. But I want you to take this time to once again explain to our listeners and viewers and readers why you're running for the city council seat serving Third Ward in Minneapolis and what you promised to deliver.
Well, thank you, Al. And again, just briefly, I am Michael Rainville. I've lived in the Third Ward all my life. I've worked in the Third Ward all my life. I recently took an early retirement from the Minneapolis Convention and Visitors Association after 35 years of service and building up downtown. That hospitality industry has some great entry-level jobs, and there's 36,000 people who live in Minneapolis that work in that industry. During those same 35 years, I volunteered over in Northeast Minneapolis, where I live. I live right by Elsie's Bowling Alley. And together with the St. Anthony Western neighborhood, Sheridan, Bottineau, Nicollet Island, we did some great things. We revitalized the Ritz Theater, created the Pierre Bottineau Library at the Greenbelt, which includes a own wing, a separate wing for children. We realized 15 years ago that not every child in our neighborhood had internet access. And so we took care of that. We took care of our kids. And then, of course, the great parkland along the river. And one of the proudest achievements I did with my neighbors and the business community is establish a police substation on East Hennepin and University. With that BCOP that was assigned there, we had community policing at its finest. That police officer knew us as residents, knew the business community, knew the customers, and knew who didn't belong there and was trying to do mischief. So I have great experience. I'm a young man. I'm very young at heart, and I want to continue to serve my community. I come from a family that serves, and that's in my nature. I learned that at De La Salle High School a long time ago. As to my promise, I promise I will listen. I will listen to the voters of Third Ward, and especially I will listen to the Black community. I can never say that I can speak for the Black community as a white man, but I can listen and take advice. And I count some great people amongst my supporters, not only you, Al, but Sharon Sales Belton. She gave me a great honor saying I would be a good servant leader. I have the ability to get along with the other council members. Even if they don't agree with me, I can get along with them because we're all human beings. We all want to do the right thing. And I am a big, huge supporter and fan of Chief Arredondo and Charlie Adams over in the 4th Precinct. When I need help and advice from the Black community, I know I have people there that can help me and help understand what is important. So that's a big statement I just said, sure. And a lot of good things, but I'm up for it, Al, and I'm ready to serve.
Describe the Third Ward. What are the physical boundaries? What's the geography? And then what's the demographics of Third Ward as you understand it?
Sure. So the Third Ward, 10 years ago at the last census, there was roughly about 32,000 people in each ward in the city, in the 13 wards. The Third Ward has grown so much, there's about 45,000 people now. It's huge. And it goes on the west side of the river from the 35W freeway up to Plymouth Avenue, and from the river into downtown, roughly about 7th Street. It gets a little down to 4th Street and 5th Street at times, but a lot of downtown Minneapolis. And then over here in Northeast is from Lowry Avenue North, going down to Dinkytown through Southeast Minneapolis, and probably a quarter mile, half mile inland. So it's a very diverse ward economically. It's a very diverse ward racially wise. We have a large Somali population here, a mosque. For the first time in my life, I went to a mosque to meet them and understand what their needs were. So the third ward can be a leader in the reckoning and the awareness that we need to do to heal the city.
Okay, great. There's a history of Northeast Minneapolis and North Minneapolis that's not pretty. I think it's changed in recent years, changed for the better. I can tell you out of my own business memory, Michael, is that when I first started distributing Insight in Northeast Minneapolis, I met resistance from the city council member, your friend and mine now, Walt Dietzick. And I remember we did a story about the tax increment financing that resulted in the building of the IDS Center. And the writer who did the story, a college student, made some remarks about, deal making at city council that was not flattering, and that I think Walt Dietzick took offense to personally. And as a consequence, he called me on the carpet and asked me who told me I could distribute Insight in Northeast Minneapolis, that Northeast was his territory, and I had to have approval from him to be there. Well, we battled back and forth. The long and short of it, though, is that both of our cooler heads prevailed over time, and I grew to view him, and he viewed me, I believe, as a friend. Both of us equally committed to creating prosperity, dignity, and equality in our community. So I commend him from being a hard hat, but being edgy on the front end. But once we got to know each other, coming around to where we both could be civil and actually cooperate, collaborate, and celebrate each other's sense of community. He operated out of a sense of being protective of what he thought was the lay of the land. And I operated out of a sense of the change that was afoot and is afoot and continues still today. And so how do you see Northeast Minneapolis having changed, and also North Minneapolis having changed over the past generation? And you're particularly capable of addressing this question, not only because of the personal work you described, but also because you've got a legacy role. Your family has been in political leadership and business leadership for a long, long time.
Well, yes, thank you. So my family, we're all immigrants, and my family immigrated here from Quebec City in 1860 to work in the sawmills, and later were small business owners. Rainville Mattress Company, Rainville Furniture Store, Rainville Funeral Home. So I really understand how important is the jobs that these small businesses create, the tax dollars. And you're absolutely right about Walter Dietzick. My father and him went to high school together, so I've known Walt a long time. And he was a hardhead. He was. Yep. He had a heart of gold, and once you got to know him, because his life was shaped. His parents were immigrants from Poland. Mm-hmm. And his father died when Walter was 2, leaving. He had 5 brothers and sisters, and they were just poor. One of the most touching stories he ever told me was he remembers being maybe 5 or 6 years old, and the water meter reader coming to his house, and to knock on the door to tell his mother that he was going to shut off the water because they hadn't paid their bill. And once this man, this city employee, understood the circumstances, he just said, "Okay, thank you," and he went away. Well, they never shut off the water, and somehow the city resolved that. Later, he became a police officer. Mm-hmm. As many of the new immigrants did, they integrated themselves in the city by working for the city. And after his 14 years as a police officer, he was a city council member for 21 years, and then a park board for 12. And he in his retirement years ran for the park board because the children were not getting enough funding. and the parks. They weren't having programs after school, sports. And Walter thought that was terrible. As a child, the coaches he had were his mentors. And he wanted that for the children in Minneapolis. He wanted the park board to take care of the children. So when I think of myself in public service, I think, why am I doing this? And I'm doing it for the children. Again, I love the word reckoning, because that's what we have to do. As a community, we have to use our government to level the playing field, to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity to succeed in this community. And that's my driving force. What makes me get up in the morning. I've been running hard for 10 months here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that I've listened enough into the community. I've listened to thousands of people, both voters and outside, and I can help heal the city. I can't do it by myself, but as Sharon Sales Belton said, I can be a servant leader. I can listen, and regardless of who the mayor is, I promise you I'll get along with that mayor.
Michael Rainville, I call you Brother Michael. Good to see you again. Thank you for this presentation. Thank you for being a candidate, and good luck to you. We'll be announcing our endorsements for City Council later on today, so check back to the Insight News website by the end of the day today, and we'll see how we have ranked and what we're recommending to our readers and our community in terms of best choices for serving our city. I want to recognize and thank Adjua Pugh and also Diana Hawkins, who are here, our partners and colleagues from Hawthorne Neighborhood Council, and also thank our partnership with the Human Project as well, supporting this community engagement. Let me shift to another candidate, Tekken Zia Aida, who is a candidate for Ward 7. Tekken, always good to see you. I've enjoyed getting to know you and to hear your voice and your passion week after week on this program. And let me do the same thing, is ask you to take a few minutes here as we wind towards the moment of decision, to explain to voters why they should elect you to City Council serving Ward 7.
Thank you, Al, Diana, and the entire team. I honestly cannot express my gratitude to Insight News and to you, sir, for giving me this platform really to exercise and sharpen myself. I mean, if we go back months that I've attended, I was working some things out and was getting used to this platform and to exposing myself to the community in this way, right? And, it's a learning process. And I am, like I said, eternally grateful to you, sir, and your team for giving me the opportunity to grow. My name is Tekken Zia Aida, and I am running in the 7th Ward of Minneapolis to represent all of the neighbors of this community, the 7th Ward family at the City Council. Similar to how Mike Rainville was laying out, the kind of breadth and depth of the 3rd Ward, mine is similar. It's an extension. We butt up to each other. I will be representing, right, the other half of downtown, the majority of the business community. And from that point on, Elliott Park, Loring Park, Kenwood, Isles, Dean, Bryn Mawr, it is a huge swath of land that has really the spectrum of the socio and economic realities of Minneapolis. I mean, we go from some of the poorest people, majority elders, Black and brown, but not just, who are living in what I call old public housing, church public housing, now run and operated by Aon and Beacon Interfaith. Many elders who are living in these buildings, and some who are living in the cracks, all the way up to the lakes area where we have some of the richest people in the state of Minnesota, quite frankly. And so it is a huge ward, and one that I look forward to knitting together our common values, our common goals and concerns for our neighbors, for our city, and really for our state, but also to activating the power, the intelligence, the experiences, both economic, educational, institutional, governmental, of the Seventh Ward in the interests of all of Minneapolis. There's been a real disconnect for the last 24 years, if not longer than that, quite frankly, between the Seventh Ward, the beautiful bubble that we exist in here, for the most part, in Ward 7, and the rest of our community. And so as someone who grew up in Minnesota, who is adopted from, I am South American, Colombian, Afro-Colombian by birth. I was raised by very traditional, Swedish and Nordic, Anglo-Nordic Minnesotans who were really first generation, similar to Mike. My grandfather was the last, by adoption, the last born in Sweden. My other grandfather was the first in his family born in a walk-up in New York City. And so we are all, as Michael so eloquently said, really descendant of immigrants in many different ways. And so being able to offer myself in service, but as a bridge candidate on which, laying myself down, many people, disparate communities can meet and find common ground to solve the various and really at this point extreme issues that we have in front of us. And so that's why I'm running. There's a door knocker that I've seen out across the Seventh Ward in specific neighborhoods that say that Lisa Goodman, who is the 24-year incumbent, is your choice for police reform and a better Minneapolis. I'm sorry, friends. Lisa's had 24 years to do this reform. We have not seen it. This is the culmination of her lack of effort, commitment, or hard work in this area. And so I am trying to elegantly and pragmatically communicate to the Seventh Ward stakeholders that it just might be time to pass that baton to the next generation. And I, with my 22 years in business, my being a Humphrey Fellow, my being an arts advocate, philanthropist, have been living here since 1994, and living here and being a contributor since, for 20 some years to the vitality, economy, and opportunity of the city of Minneapolis. I just might be the right person who also happens to be Black and represent the communities hardest hit in our city. I might be the right guy to pass that baton to. There's one last thing I want to say, which is, talking about our immigrant past. It is a known fact here in Minnesota that our newer immigrants, whether they be from Canada or from Scandinavia or Germany or where have you, unfortunately, kind of got the ball rolling for the serious disenfranchisement of the African American and Native American people in this state. Unfortunately, when they came here and came up against the WASPs from the East Coast who had been here, earlier, they weren't quite on the same footing. And in order to rise up a lot of times, they had to push others down. And so I think that one of the things that I encourage, and Michael, I think that you would join me in this work, is truth and reconciliation. Something that I cannot remember her name, running in Ward, is it 10? She talks about this often, and I've talked about it for years, even before running, that we needed true and honest truth and reconciliation here in order to come out from under the dark cloud. And it was my grandfather, and Mike, perhaps maybe yours, that brought some of this arch racism to Minnesota. And so I'm here to say we need to forgive, not forget, but work forward together in order to move out, as I said, from the dark clouds of really Minnesota Northern apartheid and bring everyone back into the fold for the first time, really, so that we can achieve the next Minneapolis miracle.
I think you were talking about Alicia over
Alicia
in Ward
Gibson,
10, Alicia Gibson, I believe, and she's been on a regular basis talking about the need of having a ward by ward truth and reconciliation experience where we face head on, with compassion, but with intentionality, the hurt, the harm, the aspirations, the advantages and disadvantages that we have experienced from our cultural vantage points over the past generations. It's a good idea, I think.
Yeah.
Michael, you can respond to that. What do you think about that question of truth and reconciliation
Mhm.
in some level in the city of Minneapolis?
Well, I would follow the lead of Andrea Jenkins. So Andrea has already gotten the ball rolling on that subject, and she's introduced some. I don't know the exact wording, but it's been accepted by the entire council. So the groundwork has been laid. And yes, ticketing is right. We should go down that path. Absolutely. The best healing is honesty and education. That's the best. And that's what this new city council has to do. They have to be more open, more honest, and let's have these very educated discussions about racism and how we heal and move forward. All of us need to prosper, every single one of us.
That's right. And Michael, you did your aide in your office? Did they give you the packet that I dropped off for you?
Yes, it's the fanciest literature I've ever seen in my life. You are a very talented young man. It was incredible.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
It's so beautiful. I'm going to always keep it and treasure it.
Thank you, sir. You know, coming from small business, creative business, and you know, being who I am, I just chose to speak to my community through art and through values-based language as we work towards shaping and crafting the policy that you were just speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to break protocol a little bit and ask Adjua Pugh to talk. I know she's supporting the Kathy Span candidacy in Ward 5, and Kathy is not here. She has been on the program in the past. We appreciate her. She's affiliated with us because of her leadership at the Jordan Neighborhood Council. And Adjua, I think you're with the Jordan Council, right? You're the chair of Jordan Council.
I am.
So thank you for your presence and your participation in the partnership between Jordan and Hawthorne and Insight News for creating this series of conversations. But if you're okay with it, and if the other candidate's okay, I think we're about sharing information. And if you'd like to talk about the candidacy of Kathy Span, you're welcome to. Let me say, you've got light behind you and not light on front of you. So you're kind of as a shadow here. I don't know if you've got a light that you can put on the front of your face or
I don't know. I don't know why this always does that. And I do have a light, and I'm probably going to use it next time because I do see the shadow.
Yeah,
And I wonder if it's my lighting that's above me.
It's
but
like you need more light on your face, and you've got that bright light in back that creates a silhouette. So having said that, next time try to make sure you test your lighting first. But go ahead and talk about
I definitely will.
Your candidate.
So Kathy Span, she is amazing. If anybody knows her, she has been in this community for 25 years. She has worked, lived, and played and worshiped here for 25 years. She is, I call her, and a lot of people call her the mayor of Jordan, because she has worked for Jordan Area Community Council for the past 10 years. And most of the time, a lot of times people in Jordan don't call 311, they call Kathy Span. And the reason that they call Kathy Span is because most people that know Kathy Span knows that Kathy Span will, if she doesn't have the answer, she's going to find the answer. And she takes action. And Kathy Span is, she's passionate about her work. She wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. She sends out emails. She follows up. She is boots to the ground. I mean, she's going to go and see how to get and where she can get and what she can get. If you need it, she's going to work it out to get that. And so she is a plethora of information. She has made relationships over the past 25 years. And everybody, I don't know anybody when you say Kathy Span that does not love Kathy Span and the work, the hard work that she does for her community and for Jordan Area Community Council. And so I can only imagine what the work that she'll bring and give to City Council, because she gives of her whole self, her entire self. That's exactly what she does. One of her mottos is, "We will go to City Hall together," and she truly means that. when she gets elected, she's not just saying this is about me, because it's not about her coming up in the ranks. It's not about her pushing her own agenda. It's about her serving her community, serving the people in her ward, serving us all. And so I truly believe in what she stands for, what she believes in, everything she says. When she says jobs, 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 she's going to bring relationships and build relationships to bring jobs to North Minneapolis. I believe her because I know that she has personally given jobs to people herself. She talks to people about it all the time, and she's always in the relationship building process, so she can, because we understand now that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And she knows a lot of people. And so Kathy Span, one of her mottos is check my track record.
Yeah.
And she has a long track record. And as far as this public safety is concerned, Kathy Span started for Jordan. We had the patrolling in our area before COVID. The violence had gone down in Jordan by 24.5% before COVID, before all of this nonsense started. The relationship between the community, Hawthorne and Jordan together, working together, having those relationships where the police was coming to meet with the community, to hear their grievances, that collaboration, that partnership was going very, very well, and COVID happened, unfortunately. And it was because I was almost at every meeting, working with side by side with Diana and Kathy, and Andrew and anybody else that wanted to be there, and the police, Derek Barnes and all of the other officers that were there, and they gladly came. It was amazing to see us work together. So it's not like MPD didn't want to. And even our relationship with Chief Rondo, supporting Chief Rondo is is because he's in a seat. See, it's not about him personally. It's about the seat and who you're going to support to sit in the seat. It just so happened that Chief Rondo is sitting in the seat now. And I'm not saying this on behalf of Captain Span now. I'm speaking as I do right now. And I totally support Chief Rondo because Chief Rondo understands the disparities that is going on in the Minneapolis Police Department, because he sued the Minneapolis Police Department. He won, and then he was hired to be the police chief. And everything that has taken place so far, it seems to me that they are not allowing him to do his job since then.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that is horrible, because what did you hire him for? The people that are elected, we elected people, and then they hired a person. So the people that we elected hired this man and won't allow him to do his job, but you're not talking to the people that elected you to see how we feel about it first. I don't think that's fair. And so I'm not gonna go on a tangent. Let me breathe.
Well, let me go on a tangent because I'm telling you.
Let me say this first real quick. But Kathy Span is the woman for the job for Fifth Ward City Council. Check her track record. When she is going to City Hall, we are going to City Hall with her. And I truly believe her. And I'm going to pause on that note.
Michael, go right ahead.
Yeah, so I have served on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Chief of Police for 12 years. Before that, it was Dolan, a North Side kid, Chief Harto, first woman mayor, and now Chief Arredondo. And just last week, Arredondo said all these reforms, the Charter 2 amendments, all this smoke and mirrors that's going on. Do you think the city council called him up to ask him how he felt about it? No. Not once have they said to him, what do you think about this? Or, hey, how much money do you need for reform? How are you doing on recruiting our youth of color? They have never included him in his plans. It's terrible what they've done. It's just inexcusable. That's why you're going to see such a big change on the city council. But we have to talk to each other. As you talked about Kathy having relationships, absolutely. The way where we're going to get along and move forward and heal and enjoy the reckoning, because we need to enjoy what we're going to do. We need to enjoy helping each other You have to talk to each other. You have to have a relationship. And this activist city council has failed us on that time and time again.
So
You
bad.
know,
Let me
I was
bring Diana in first, Tech, and then we'll come back to you. Diana.
You know, you guys, I don't say much on the subjects weekly. I listen. But I think today's topic is really, really hitting home because there's going to be a story about the history of the MPD tonight. You know what I mean? On
Yes, it
Fox.
is. Yep.
You know, so I encourage everybody to watch it. But what people don't understand, instead of pointing fingers, and we already know what the problem is, what we need to do is make the changes and move forward.
Mhm.
You know, that's what we really need to do instead of saying, we know that this is a problem over here in this ward, so we need to change that. We know that there's a problem in the police department. We need to change that.
Mhm.
But all of these agencies and let's, you know, abolish and do that. Do people really know what that means? I don't think so. Because
They
if
couldn't.
did, I don't think that they would use those words.
Words.
I think what they
right.
would use is we need change in
That's
a
right.
peaceful way.
Mhm.
So I'm just
Amen.
weighing in. I don't really weigh in, but the topic today is just really heavy for me and it hit home.
Well, can I add something? Because it's not change, because this is the thing about change, and this is what I learned, is that change is immediate. Change is quick, and it's external. Transformation is what happens behind the scenes, and it takes a process. So
Yeah.
we need to transform the things that is taking place in our city. Because here's the deal. When I sat and I watched on the news, when the city council went up there and said, abolish and disband the police, I couldn't believe it. And I say this all the time. I called Kathy Span, because that's who I called first. And I said, did you see this? I said, what is about to happen, it's about to be a purge. I said, because what people hear is that there is no police. And that's exactly what happened. So for the past 18 months, we who live in Ward 4 and Ward 5 have been living in hell, because every day, all day, any time of the day, we hear gunshots, rapid gunfire. I don't care if you sleep, if you woke, it don't matter. And I again, and Al, I was here once before, and I questioned and I asked, do the people who stood up on that stage and said those things actually live over here? Because it seems to not have affected them at all. Let me tell you how much this has affected me. I promise you, I feel like I need to go to therapy, because every time you hear something, you don't know if it's fireworks, a car backfiring, you don't know if it's gunshots, you don't know if somebody dropped something, you don't know if it's a truck, you don't know if it's a band of people running down, you don't know, you just pause and you terrified trying to figure out what that was, so you'll know if you need to run, if you need to call the police. It's horrible living here like that. And I was in a debate or a conversation the other day on Tuesday about question number 2, and they asked me, what am I going to do? And I said, after this election, we'll tell the tale of how I'm going to live, and if I'm going to continue to live in the city of Minneapolis. Because the truth of the matter is that whatever happens, Minneapolis is the catalyst of what's going to happen across this country.
Yes.
Everybody's eyes is on Minneapolis to see what they're going to do, and whatever we do here, that's what they're going to do across the country. And it's either going to be, we're going to either find some transition to make some changes and some transitions, or we are all faced with going to hell in a handbasket. And I refuse to keep putting my family and my life on the line, because what people don't understand is that bullets have to land somewhere, and I don't want them landing in me and in my house where I pay to be safe.
That's right.
Let me just say, how, just speaking to affirm, the feelings you've expressed. I was outside in my backyard last night and heard a loud noise, but I'm thinking back now, reflecting on why should a person hear a noise and immediately wonder whether or not it's a gunshot, to try to do some mental trigonometry or calculus to see how far it sounded away, and whether if it was far enough, if a bullet was coming, am I far enough to not be critically hurt by a bullet if it happened to hit me? And even to think about, oh, what happens if somebody's just shooting in the air? Where does the bullet come down? And so the question is, what is it that I have to spend my time even making that consideration on a Sunday afternoon in my backyard in North Minneapolis? So, you know, that I'm having these feelings, and I'm an ordinary person.
And an elder.
Everybody else is having the same feeling at one level or another, wondering. And how do you justify putting yourself in that position where you have to wonder if this noise is a noise that is not just a happenstance backfire, or a firecracker, but it could be munitions, and that you could be victimized by it, even if you're not, somebody else could be. So the concern you're expressing is real. You know, it's real. And I'm glad that you're saying it the way you're saying it, Adjoa, because I think we need to say it to ourselves loudly, clearly, with the intent of creating an expectation that our society is one that takes our safety seriously, our community's right to be secure and safe and free of crime and free of fear of collateral, victimhood. That's real. So let me ask Michael and Tekken to walk us through one more time the 3 ballot questions as you read them, and to the degree that you're willing to share what you are telling voters who ask you where you stand on ballot question 1, ballot question 2, ballot question 3. What are your thoughts? Michael, I'm going to start with you.
Actually, Michael, would you mind if I go first? Because I have to get ready to go to a funeral here shortly. Is that okay?
Please do, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, that's fine.
Adjoa, powerful words. I'm here with you. I am trying to communicate exactly what you've been saying to my 7th Ward community. We need to show up for you. We don't need to speak for you, right? And that's part of the problem, is that the African American community and those other communities most impacted were not on that stage. We're not at this table, have not been approving this language, none of it. And that's the problem. We've been left behind. And I could keep going on with that. The ballot questions. As someone who owned his own company for 22 years in Minneapolis, I understand what it is like to be Black and at the head of your own enterprise. So I understand what Chief Rondo may be going through. I just want to get that out real quick. Additionally, I also therefore understand and uphold the idea of a strong chief executive. To me, it makes sense. Additionally, I support the idea of a legislative council that is absolutely beholden to the neighborhoods, to the constituents, to represent them and craft ideas, legislation, policy to pass to the mayor for his, her, or their approval, et cetera, et cetera. With regards to question number 2, the abolition or dismantling, defunding of MPD, I am not in support of it, even though I absolutely understand it. As someone who is Black and someone who is younger and has been on these streets, meaning lived this life, been a part, connected to these streets in the city of Minneapolis. But again, this is knee-jerking after decades, going back to the 30s, if not to the 1890s, of inaction by city fathers, mostly, when it came to keeping all of us safe. And so at this particular juncture, I'm not going to, similar to, privatizing public school education and all these other things, take the easy way out. I am going to roll up my sleeves with this new council to actually do the work of reform and, Adjoa, as you said, transformation. The third, I do support rent stabilization. I tie it to historic preservation. I tie it to deep tax incentives for landowners, landlords who want to come on board with this actually moral, principled policy. I disagree with many of my friends. I only wish that I had been at the table. I know it's important for me to be at the table moving on in the next year, because what I know is that Rent stabilization, first and foremost, is to protect the senior citizens who are still living this traditional inner city American way of life and who are renting but are on a fixed income. They cannot weather the ever increasing rents in this city. Okay, so had I been asked and invited to partake, similar to the police question, I would have said, let's whittle it in and target this to the communities that are actually in need of rent stabilization and the protections that come with that. We don't need to be stabilizing rents in the luxury high rises, blanket over everything. We need to target it. That's what I would have advocated. So I am yes, no, yes. Real quick before I bounce, you were talking, Adwa, so eloquently about being forced out of your home by violence. I think that this is exactly what is going on. The Minneapolis 2040 plan was a bot job. Beware of anyone who had any part of that product, who championed it, who developed it, who is trying to run on it. It was a bot job, and when it failed, because they could not bamboozle progressive white Minneapolitans to support this trickle-down economic plan draped in black and brown and indigenous woes, it is gangster development, winner takes all, scorched earth policy. And so I absolutely believe that what is going on in our community right now is directly related to the failures of the Minneapolis 2040 development plan. And so I do believe that it is, what's going on right now is trying to push many of us out of our homes here in Loring, over on the north side, over deep south, even up in the wealthier neighborhoods who are terrified about what's going on and are thinking about putting their homes on the market. That is exactly what it is about, because just like colonialism in Africa, when it all falls apart, guess who's going to come back? The old colonial powers.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? The people who want our land, the gangster developers, et cetera, et cetera. So I could keep going on that. This has been, as my Humphrey fellow Diana has said, this has been a wonderful conversation. Michael, I'm going to pass it to you, and I thank all of you for your time.
Thank you.
Chicken.
Bye-bye.
Michael, you've got the microphone.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's a tough act to follow. He's really a passionate man, and that's great, because that's what we need, is passionate leadership from all of us. But your question about the charter amendments. So charter question number one, which is to reorganize the city into very firm lanes of authority. The mayor will know what he does and his responsibility, the city council, and the department heads. And I say the department heads because with the micromanaging, the system now allows for a lot of micromanaging of these department heads. They get calls from 14 different people, the mayor, 13 council members, the council aides, to tell them how to do their snow plowing, pick up the garbage, cut the trees. It doesn't work, to the point where in the last 3.5 years, 11 of the 13 department heads have quit. Rondo is the only one in the health department. And the reason they've quit is because they get micromanaged and they're not allowed to do their job. In fact, we've had 3 city coordinators in the last 2 years. City coordinator would be like the city manager. It's in many ways, it's probably the most important department head, but they're not allowed to do their job. So all other cities our size, even a city like St. Paul, which is smaller, the Mayor Carter has the authority. And you know what? When it's time to vote, did Mayor Carter do his job? It's very clear and easy to understand. So that's good governance. And I would ask people to not think of the current mayor. Think of the mayor in 2 years, 2 terms, 5 terms from now, because you're going to have way more professional people running for mayor, for city council, and for department heads. So that's how I feel about that. Charter 2, I could talk about for the rest of the show. In a nutshell, there is no plan. When those city council members got on stage, first of all, they didn't call their constituents, but they promised to reach out to us and that they would work with us to create a plan. And it's been 16 months and there has been no outreach. And they have a plan. They're just not telling us. And the plan is to fire Chief Arredondo the day after that passes. Because remember, they're allowed to put this new Department of Public Safety in play in 30 days. So mark my words, Al, there'll be 5, 6, maybe 7 council members that aren't going to be on the council in January, and they're making a plan for us who have to live here. And the last thing I just want to say about this Amendment 2 is it's a bunch of people who are not affected by this crime who have these great ideas. The money is coming from the East Coast, big check, $500,000. The leadership of the movement live in St. Paul. They're not the mothers and fathers of these beautiful little children in North Minneapolis are scared to death because of the gunshots. They're not representing the people most affected. And that, to me, is just part of not having a plan. You have to include everybody. The third ballot question is about rent control. And boy, that's a tough one because my heart aches for people who don't have stable housing. That's been a big part of my life. Just the culture I grew up with it. I had my first duplex when I was 23 years old. I lived there with a bunch of friends. We pooled our money together, and slowly we got equity, and that allowed me a lot of great freedom. But in other cities where this rent control issue has been put on the ballot, it hasn't worked. And new development has stopped, and Lord knows we need to keep building. And the existing housing, of which there's so many of these small little apartment buildings, little mom and pop owners, they're not going to have the money to repair it. I go over to Ascension School a lot. The church I belong to, Our Lady of Lourdes, we have a relationship with a family with kids there. And on Bryan Avenue, and Al, you know this building I'm talking about, there's a little, I don't know, maybe it's 12 units between Ascension and Broadway. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have the money to fix that roof or to tuck point the bricks or to do rodent control, they're not going to do it. So mm-hmm. How can you cap them? And taxes are going to go up. A lot of landlords pay the electricity or the heat. It's just not well thought out. And the last thing in the world we need to do is to stop building housing. That's the danger of that ordinance. And especially if this activist city council stays in play. They don't work. They don't own a business. They've never kind of worked for their lives. So they don't understand the dollars and cents side of it. So that's how I feel about those 3 issues.
Adjoa, you had a comment you wanted to make or add?
I do. So my comment is for question 1. Whatever they're doing in St. Paul with Mayor Carter in the helm and steering that ship, that seems to be working pretty good for them. Mm-hmm. And I think the issue here is that they're looking at the person in the office, in the position, not the office itself. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that's why that question is coming out. But for me, if you look at question 1, based on whatever response we get for question 1 will affect question 2.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're talking about question 2, now let's move on to question 2. That first of all, how is that going to happen?
Summarizing question 1, strong mirror, weak mirror. That's the issue, whether there'll be authority, clear lines of authority vested in the mayor versus more authority remaining in the hands of city council.
No, the mayor. Mayor's the head, then city mm-hmm. council, legislation, right. And then we work with them so they can work with him and we can all get it right. done together. So mayor's the head, city council, yep. and us. There yep. we go. That's it. He the star on the tree.
So from that to question 2, what's the connection?
Because what happens in question 1 is going to affect question 2. Mm-hmm. And how that pans out, because they're saying that the mayor and city council together is going to make a decision to put somebody in office in 30 days. So if we don't know if it's going to be up or down, or top down, down, up, however, that's going to affect question 2 and who's going to sit in that seat. So when I was in a conversation the other day, I asked, so if they only have 30 days, whose name is in the hat? Mm-hmm. And nobody could answer that question, because you got to have a name or some names in the hat in order to be able to do that in 30 days. For you to be able to come up with the timeline of 30 days with the city, because we all know don't nothing happen at the city in 30 days. I don't care what it is.
Right.
But you're going to hire a whole person to go to head a department in 30 days, and you telling me that you don't have no names in the hat or a name in the hat? I want to tell you it's bullshit. But anyway, you got an idea who it is that you want to head up this Department of Public Safety, because I got an idea who it is, and I'm sure everybody else do too. So therefore, I think that they need to. Question number 2 is a no, and a no again, because there is no plan and we don't need another department. We already got a department. We got the MPD, and the MPD is willing to work with the community to come up with a plan, or to work together with a plan, because Chief Rondo has a plan. I saw it myself. He has a plan. He just hasn't been able to implement it. And so
who do you think it is that the council has in mind to head up the new department?
Philippe Cunningham.
Who?
Philippe Cunningham. He made the Office of Violence Prevention. He created the Office of Violence Prevention, and he has a master's degree in criminology. So who else would they have to oversee the public safety department? Everybody knows that. Don't you know? That's what I heard. That's rumor on the street, is Philippe Cunningham is gunning for that job. So, and then as far as question number 3 is concerned, I think that rent subsidies is okay. I don't know about capping rent. I don't know about that, but I know rent subsidies will help people in order for them to be able to choose where they live and not be stuck in one spot. They can be able to pick and choose where they live. So I believe in housing rent subsidies.
Yeah. So Al, if I can just jump in, Audra, you're absolutely right. The solution is some type of subsidy. As the transformation goes forward into creating better jobs, to bringing manufacturing back to Minneapolis. I live by Graco, which makes industrial equipment, and with a couple of years of training, you can start there in their machine shop business. That's an old term. As a modern word now, I don't know what it'd be, but basically you're 21, 22 years old. You're making $55,000 a year. You have paid vacation. You have health insurance. You have stock options in Graco, and you got a good life. And that's what we need to do to help with this rent, rather than control the landlord's income. We need to create jobs and really look into helping people subsidize the rent, so the landlords are made whole. So again, they can fix the leaking roof, make sure the rodent control is good, and the new windows are on. You are absolutely right. I agree with you 100%.
Well, as you were saying, you thought that Philippe Cunningham,
yes,
who was the incumbent in 4th Ward, is the likely person that the advocates of ballot question number 2 is the likely person to move in that direction. The thought I had was, the plot thickens.
Because I believe it's him, because he has a master's degree in criminology, or a master's degree in something that has to do with public safety. And that's why he created the Office of Violence Prevention in the first place, because he wants to oversee it. So we're going to take the power from Chief Rondo and give it to Philippe? I think not. The answer is no. NAWL, no.
Okay, all right. Got it. Listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. Diana, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? We're going to wrap this up in about 3 or 4 minutes. What are your thoughts, Diana?
I think this has been a great conversation. I'm excited for next Monday, because Tuesday after that is the election. And so it's going to be great to come back that following Monday just to have a conversation on who won, what they're going to do. Yeah, what happened. Because I know at least for another 3-4 weeks, Al, with this conversation, it's going to be heavy, because there's going to be a lot of questions, and a lot of people are going to be talking about, there may be some upsets, there may not. But in all reality, my hopes is that whoever wins, I wish all the candidates the best, but whoever wins, I just ask that we finally come together and have some kind of peace and work together as a unit.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
And make sure, please, Al, please, my final thought is on that following Monday after the election, that you send me the link to invite me back, because I can't wait to be a part of that conversation.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure you're here. Diana, before we leave, I want you to remind people about Winter Warmth.
Yes.
I saw the flyer this morning.
Yes, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm sending out a flyer. Our way already got it. You got it, Al. But we're done collecting coats for real. We'll take them if you have them. But on November the 20th, you can please send me an email at dhawkins@hncmpls.org if your child needs a coat, because we're giving away coats and we're also giving away backpacks that have school supplies. And I know we're giving away gloves and hats, and I think there's some boots in there. But, we have several partners who have come together, and we're concerned about our youth this year because we know families are struggling. So please contact me, and I will make sure that you get a coat for your child. Your child, please, you must do a registration by November the 15th. So I'll make sure that you will be on the list. Again, dhawkins@hncmpls.org. Thank you, Al.
Thank you all. Michael, last question or comment?
I just, Brother Al, I'm going to ask a favor of you. I have never met the Reverend McAfee. I'm sure you know him.
I do.
I have met several of the other Black ministers who are involved in the 21 Days of Peace. But when my crazy life subsides, I want to meet him. I want to shake his hand, and I want to tell him how much I admire him. He is a true leader. He's a brave man. He's everything that we need to heal and move forward. And he does a great job in ministering to the North Side. So I would ask you at some point, if there's an event or something I could get invited to, but I'd really like to meet him.
I'll make it happen. I'll make it happen. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. See you tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Take care.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you break.
We've had enough
of all the money you make.
We've had enough.
No more life at stake.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait.
Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you were breaking.
We had enough
of all the money you were making.
We had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty,
It's gonna get filthy.
better believe. Just roll up your sleeves.
It's gonna get rough. It's gonna be tough.
We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough
Of all the rules you're breaking.
We've had enough.
All the money you're making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We've had enough.
This is the proclamation.
We've had enough.
Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice.
We've had enough.
Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price.
We've had enough.
Philando, Breonna, George Floyd.
What? We've had enough.
So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard.
We've had enough.
Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand.
We've had enough.
Sean Bell,
Sean Bell.
what the hell?
We've had enough.
Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said?
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.